joined. My name is Brett Thurber. I am the owner of the New Wheel with my wife, Karin, and I am joined today by Nadine Stein from Orbea. Nadine, can you give our fine folks joining us a hint on where you are and what your role is at Orbea?
So I'll start with what I do at Orbea. I have the wonderful position of national sales manager for the US. And as you can tell from my accent, I'm very not American of origin, and which is kind of fun. So I work for a European company living in the US, but I am of African origin. So right now I'm at home in my mum's house in the Kingdom of Eswatini, which most people have never heard of, but it's a tiny little absolute monarch. There are only three remaining absolute monarchies in the world, and this is one of them. It's a polygamous patriarchal society. It's a teeny little country, and it's nestled between South Africa and Mozambique, and we have a population of 1.3 million. So pretty tiny. I'm here to help my mom. We've sold up her home, and she will be retiring to Cape Town and immigrating to South Africa. So I'll be making that trip with her on Monday. So somewhat of an adventure. It's much warmer where I am right now
Oh
than where
yeah.
I normally live in Denver. So
Yeah, what is the temperature?
it's 9 o'clock at night and it's 28 degrees Celsius.
Okay,
So
Fahrenheit.
yeah. So I mean Fahrenheit wise, I'll give you, let's see, I'll have a look. Because I still have all my things on my phone set at Fahrenheit. So it's 84 right now.
Okay. Oh wow. Well, we're
Thanks to
having
my
a heat
computer.
wave here too, which gets
Double
us.
it and add 30. There you go.
Yeah,
So
there we
it's
go.
like, yeah. So it's pretty
Um,
warm in general. So yeah. It never
that's
gets cool at night though. That's the difference. It doesn't cool off.
okay.
Yeah. So it stays warm day and night in the summer. We have a wet season and a dry season. We don't really have a winter.
No winter.
No winter.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're still getting people joining. Well, we're also having a little bit of a heat wave here in the Bay Area, which is inspiring us to ride
Go
bikes
ride bikes. Yes.
and
Yeah.
buy bikes. I mean, we've had it's been epic in terms of the number of people coming in as of late. Um, and so this is the perfect time to talk about a brand new bike that I am super excited for. Um, and this has been a bike that you know I've been excited for in some form or another, maybe not from Orbea, whoever was going to build it for, I think probably since we started. The thing that people come in and ask for all the time is a electric bike that is is light and nimble and just like a bicycle fundamentally, but with superpowers. And we've had versions of that in the past. Um, and we have versions of that now in different forms. But I kind of think, honestly, like the Carpe is the essential sort of Model T version of that, um, in my mind. And so back in at Eurobike. Well, yeah, so at Eurobike last year, I went to Europe and I went and then also visited the Orbea factory in Spain. And that's when I first learned about the bike at Eurobike. And then I went and visited in Spain and actually got to ride it. And that was when I was like, oh man, this bike is going to be so big. Um, and so here we are. It was supposed to come out earlier this year.
And we were supposed to have it in, I think February was supposed to be our delivery initially of our first ones that we had. It was supposed to be September. And
Yeah.
we delayed a little bit because we were waiting for a couple patents to come through because we have our couple things in the seat post and other little nifty things that we're going to learn about today. And we were waiting for those patents to come through, and those have finally come through and tested and won everybody's huge grin at production level and in the factory. And so now we're ready to share it with the world.
Sweet. Okay, so without further ado, we'll just dive in. We've got a lot of things to go over. There's a lot to talk about. Um, oop. So the Carpe, Um, I mean, basically, like as I was describing before, I do feel like this is kind of like the Model T of urban bikes. It's so right for so many different types of people, for an urban environment. It's it's lightweight, and that brings agility, that brings easy maneuverability, that brings, bringing up and down stairs and all of this. Um, it doesn't sacrifice performance, which is really important for us. There's been a lot of lightweight bikes that we have looked at and that we could have carried and demoed and stocked, but I'm of the belief of if it doesn't meet a certain threshold of performance, especially in the Bay Area, you're probably better just going for a regular bike. And so there are a lot of lightweight bikes out there. You can make a lightweight bike pretty darn lightweight by just paring down the motor performance. But then
Yeah, and
then you ask
reducing battery size, right? And limiting
yeah,
range. Yeah.
and you ask the question like why? Then why? And so that's not the case in this situation. And then there's some really cool safety features, and there's a lot of customization. And I hope Nadine, you'll be able to talk us through just how Orbea works, because that's a key part of the customization
Yeah,
option.
it's important to understand how we end up building this kind of bike, right? Because it's not just something we do because we hear it from Brett and the likes of other people that this might be something that can sell. It's because it's part of who Orbea is. It's in our DNA
Yeah.
and our philosophy behind riding. So we'll we'll explore more as we go.
So, what was that noise?
That was
Um,
an email. My inbox is pretty full with me being so
okay.
far away. Yeah.
So the frame, I think that's where we start with bikes, of course. Um, there's a really interesting thing going on in the frame. Maybe Nadine, you can just talk us through what this twin glide tech is all about.
So basically, if I simplify this in the best way possible, and this was one of our patents that we hold, is how we have two tubes that form the seat post. And the idea behind this is that you have some sort of suspension performance in that seat post that will eliminate a huge amount of road chatter and pavement chatter that would normally go right up your spine. And so this gives you flex in the seat post with a little bit of movement that doesn't compromise the performance of the bike or make it feel unstable. So you stay in a very stable platform because you're going to do 28 miles an hour on this bike, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it's designed to be able to do. And you don't want something that's going to handle like a soggy noodle. And so that's what this Twin Glide Flex Tech is. It smooths out the ride, smooths out the chatter through the pavement. It's very low in maintenance. In fact, I think it's almost maintenance free in how it's how the tubing is placed, one inside the other in the seat tube without
Yeah.
compromising frame strength either and adding weight to the bike.
And it allows you, it's the frame, I think fundamental to this frame is it's a very easy on and off frame design, and it
Correct.
fits a lot of
And it gives you
riders.
that low step through. So
Yeah.
that, well, it's not super low like um, the gazelles of this world, where it's like low. I don't want to say anything derogatory. So it's not like a granny step through bike. It's still got
Mhm.
a very sporty feel to it, but it has a low step through without, looking kind of like an old person's bike, really.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah,
how to say that.
it's a sporty. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like Orbea is, I guess, our performance oriented brand. So part of that is weight, part of that is geometry.
it's
Um,
right position. Yep,
yeah,
right
and
position. We want you to have fun. We really design our bikes for a more sportive mindset. So for the person who loves riding and who rides bikes with a little bit more of a sportive bias than just a leisure flat foot kind of mindset.
yeah. And one of the ways to make a very strong rigid frame, if you do a super low step through is awesome for a lot of customers, and it's probably our number one style of
Yep.
bike.
Which is
But you
why I don't
have
want
to,
to be derogatory
yeah,
about
yeah,
it,
no.
right? Yeah.
But you do have to do that frame, you have to beef it up to make it strong, and it just adds weight. So if you want to do a low step and you want low weight, you have to have some used to call like a mixty frame. So it's kind of a mid step, and that's what Orbea has pulled off here. It also, the battery is internal to the frame. So it's in the down tube. And it's right in here, and that means it's secure. You don't remove it to charge, so you do bring your bike to the outlet, which for most people works just fine. If there's some people that won't work for, but the nice thing about a lightweight bike is it's easy to pick up and move. Um, and
This
riding
does
this,
come with,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
go
but it
ahead.
does charge fast. It does charge fast as well. We do have that quick charge, the Shimano quick charge. So you can get a pretty full battery pretty quickly, but also it has a long range. So you might not necessarily need to charge it after every ride. That's the other
Yeah,
thing to bear in mind.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Does
my
anyone kind of
oh
wonder why we do an internal battery? I mean, that's also something we should probably talk about as a
yeah.
brand because
Oh,
you don't find any of our new bikes having an external or removable battery. We have range extenders that will fit into a water bottle cage, like on the frame externally on the down tube. But for the most part, our e-bikes are all internal batteries. And we do this for frame stiffness and for predictability of handling, which as again, when you're doing 28 miles an hour on a bike is important. You want to
and
be able
weight
to
too, right,
trust.
Nadine?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. With
And the
I
way
know
it's
that.
mounted, it's just more secure. It doesn't rattle around as much.
Mhm.
We can make those brackets inside the frame pretty solid, and the whole frame becomes the tool that holds the battery in place.
Yeah.
So
I know that talking to frame designers in the past, like if you to have a removable battery, you have to reinforce the frame extra. So you are by definition going to add weight, which if you need to do it, it makes sense. But Orbea's approach has been to categorically not do that so as to maintain a lighter weight frame.
it
Um,
definitely improves ride quality.
yeah. One thing I was going to mention is there's a chat here that you can add questions to, and then at the very end, we'll go through all the questions. So by if anything comes to mind as we're talking here, just add it to the chat, and then we'll try to answer all the questions at the end. Um, the other key thing is the carbon fork on this bike. So that's the other way to make the bike both lightweight but also handle really well and uh, reduce vibration without having suspension. Um, the I don't know if there's anything to add to that, but you see carbon forks on a lot of Orbea bikes, like the DM, which is the other urban sort of the top end urban bike from Orbea, has a carbon fork, and the Dena, which is the gravel bike, also has gravel or carbon forks, both on the aluminum version and on the carbon version. Anything to add to that?
Um, I mean, I used to ride an aluminium road bike, and I do say aluminium, I spell it that way too. But that had a carbon fork, and it definitely increased compliance without compromising performance. So again, this is another way that we trim weight, we improve the ride quality. It isolates road chatter that would normally travel up and through your wrists, through the
Yeah.
handlebars. So carbon forks definitely help to reduce that as well. You never get rid of it entirely.
Yeah. Um, So I think another really smart component of this bike is just the compactness. So Orbea didn't just think of it as a lightweight bike and that's it. It's also okay, well, if it's a lightweight bike, um, that's definitely a positive on the ride handling side of things, but it's also really positive on us urban living, space saving side of things. But it's not necessarily enough. Like you can have a lightweight bike that you still can't, easily get into the back of a car, and you can't easily get it, into an elevator or into an apartment. And so this, I think, is a really cool
Behind your
feature.
desk. Yeah, put it behind your desk at the office and be able to walk past it without catching your pocket on the handlebars. Yeah.
And so we just got our first demo bike in, and it's the Carpe 10. We'll go over all the models, but it has this standard. And I tested it out, and one thing that's really cool about this rotating stem is it is still like a solid stem. Sometimes these rotating stems are kind of things are a little loosey-goosey and you can feel that rotation even when you don't want to. But this is a really, really solid design. So it's still you have the stiffness of a non-rotating stem, but it rotates.
I actually rode this without locking the stem in place with the second latch, and it
Oops.
was solid as all heck. So it's designed, it's just an extra safety to have that
Yeah.
latch that comes across. The Swick
This one
does a really
here.
good job of holding it in place. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
This
I
one.
rode it
Yeah.
without locking that in place. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was still pretty good.
So when you
It didn't
turn the
wander
way,
on me. So that
yeah, you loosen that and then you pop that up, this one up, and then it rotates, and then you rotate it back, and this pops down, and then you would, I guess Nadine forgot to do
yeah,
this
as
one.
a double lock, you would use that
Yeah.
unless you know happen to forget and you don't latch it over. It's still pretty safe. So yeah.
Um, Folding pedals too. So this is optional on all the models, but on the 10, it comes standard with folding pedals and a folding stem. Um, the key thing with electric bikes is performance, motor performance. Um, and that's that's the standout on this. Like I said in the very beginning, like you can make a lightweight bike and you can make it underpowered and you can get to that low weight and it's pretty easy to do. And there's a lot of bikes on the market that are like that. That's traditionally been the way to hit low weight. So you have lower torque. And in some areas that might work, but in the San Francisco Bay Area, it's just less fun. Um, on the Carpe, they've built a full power motor into the bike. So it's a Shimano EP6 mid drive with 85 Newton meters of torque, which is right there at the top end of the spectrum for motor performance. So, and it's tuned for the bike and it's also tunable. So you can actually go into the app or the back end and you can adjust the motor parameters to make it even more powerful if you want. Because as it comes, it's designed to sort of give you a good mix of ride quality, range, and performance given the weight. But if you want it
If
more
I'm,
powerful, you can.
yeah, if I'm not mistaken on this one, Brett, the reason we get such a good range out of the 420 motor on the 420 battery on this particular build is that we've designed it specifically with urban riding in mind. And your area is one that we have in mind when we design Spike. For initial pickup in traffic, you'll have a lot of boost, and then it will even out how it supplies power to you to maintain speed. So it's not, it's, we program our bikes with what we call our RS tune or our specific firmware onto Shimano motors. And Shimano is one of the brands, the partners that we have in the industry that allows us to write firmware for their motors for them to perform in the way that we feel does the best justice to the bike we design with the riders we have in mind, because we are rider centric and ride quality focused in everything that we do. So that's how you get a really long range out of this bike, but have still good power.
Yeah. I like the fact that you can also ride it without assist. Not that I do that very often on my bikes, but I know we have a lot of riders that ride in low assist and no assist. And in the past, we have a lot of riders in low and low assist, but like no assist was almost out of the question in the past with heavier e-bikes. Um, and with a bike like this, you when you come and test ride it, you'll see like you can turn off the power and pedal it, and it's just it's a lightweight bike. And the motor doesn't um, add a lot of resistance at all. I don't know if this is true, but given I'm sure it is. Orbea tells us it's the lowest, one of the lowest friction motors on the market. So sweet.
Yeah, it rides well. Is easy to pedal when you have that motor off. I think we do have a question on firmware there, so I just want to touch that on that one
Yeah.
quickly. With regards to updating the firmware, you can do it through the Shimano app, and we also have Orbea RS app that you can update it through as well. So no, it is not an in-shop only
Mhm.
procedure. You can do it as a bike owner.
Um, the battery is a huge part of this. the story of this bike. It's not the biggest battery on the market, although, if you look at bikes that we were selling a number of years ago, even cargo bikes, they were coming with 400 watt hour batteries. Actually, even today, so a 420 watt hour battery is pretty darn good, especially when the weight is 20 to 30 pounds lighter than some of those bikes. Um,
And
so
your range extender can be another 210 watt hours. So you can add another 50% just with an add-on range extender.
yeah, I think, and that's
There
really
you go.
standout feature. So the internal battery is for your daily commutes is going to be fantastic around town, like San Francisco or Oakland or, you know, Larkspur, Marin, going between spots. You're generally looking at, a 10-mile round trip, which is more than covered with a 420 watt hour battery. Um, and but when you want to do it a little bit longer adventure, you grab one of these range extenders, click it in, and now you've gone about, yeah, it's like half, or you've, what, 55% more range, um, which is really cool. And it's the same range extender as on some of the other bikes too, right? Nadine?
Yep, it's the same range extender we have on the Rise and on the Denner. It's just a different length cable, I believe, between the Denner and the Rise, and I think potentially on this bike as well. And the DM, it works on the DM as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is it the same one as the Kemen too? Or
I believe so. Yep.
yeah,
So it's
there's
pretty
been a few
easy to have these
generations.
entertain.
Yeah. Um,
And
so
I
that's
think the new
cool.
cable in this one are the yeah.
The if you have, I know we have a lot of customers that, have a mountain bike and an urban bike, or have a gravel bike and an urban bike. You can share a battery in that case.
Yeah, you can share that range extender. You just need a different length cable. So just make sure
Um,
you order the cable length that's relevant to the bike model that you have.
yeah, we have to get good at always looking that up. We've made that mistake. Um, Charging, it's got a fast charger. Do you know how long it takes to charge? Or is it,
So I think for the 420 from completely empty, I've seen this thing charge in about 2 hours 40. Some people with the older charger was taking almost 4 hours. So it's reduced the time quite considerably. If it's half full, you should have it charged in just on an hour
yeah.
and a bit. So you can turn and burn pretty quickly.
So you can even take it with you maybe and charge it at lunch if you're going on a longer ride.
Yeah.
Be-
I used to commute to work with my charger in my pannier and then charge it at work and ride home again. And my commute was 28 miles and it was on a previous version, right on the DM and with a small battery.
Yeah.
Get 24 miles each way
Yeah.
and 3,000 feet of vertical gain. Yeah. And I
There's a
always rode in
question.
turbo. Of course.
Yeah. There's definitely a question on range. We'll try to give at the end, we'll answer some of those questions and give some ideas about real world. It's always hard to estimate range, but with rider weight and all of this stuff. But
So many variables.
yeah.
So many variables.
Um, so safety, I think one thing that's really cool to me on all the Orbeas is they stand out on the street. You can always tell an Orbea because of the lighting system. Um, and it's no different on the Carpe. So it's got this head tube or like stem light, which is a wraparound, so you get visibility from all sides, and then you have a really cool integrated rear light in the seat post. Um, that's, I think it's made by Supernova, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So really high quality German lighting system. Supernova makes the best lighting systems on the market, like hands down, not just in terms of like the brightness of the light and the way the beam pattern, but also the durability. Um, the um, so there's the wraparound light in the stem, and there's this rear integrated light that I was mentioning, which is very, very slick and cool. And then on the higher end models, and as an option, you can add the Supernova Mini 2 headlight, which is very compact but extremely bright, and the beam pattern is really wide. So you get a real, it's a true nighttime, not just visibility light, but seeing light. Okay. Well, this is going over battery. Uh, the fact the battery's in the frame is you can also think of it as a security system tool. So we don't see batteries being stolen in our market, but I know in Europe it has become a bigger issue. Um, and a lot of the batteries are locked, but unfortunately, locks can be broken. So this is the most, straightforward way to secure your battery, which is just don't make it removable. This is cool. Um, so you can add, there's a spot in the motor cover to add a air tag or a tile. It's right there. You'll have to bring your air tag to us and we can install it. I bet you could figure out, I don't know. It's probably user removable too. Um, but it's got a special
I
compartment
always think
just
it's
for it.
better to, yeah, I always think it's better to use the tile because when you get on something with an air tag, your phone will tell you that there's an air tag following you. And if someone happens to help themselves to your bike and they have an iPhone, it's going to tell them. But the tile doesn't tell them, so it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great point. And it's cross compatible too.
Exactly. Yeah. Just from personal experience.
Yeah. 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 Frame lock, so that there's a mounting point for a frame lock, so we can add it to any bike, but it comes standard on the higher end or the Carpe 10 model. We'll go into the details there. But that's like a super simple method for locking your bike around town, and then you can plug a chain to secure your bike to something right here. For those who have, bought bikes from us, you'll definitely be familiar with cafe locks because we have them on a lot of bikes. Let's see. This I didn't know. So how does that work? This multi-mounting point. I haven't actually seen this myself. Do you know,
So I
Nadine?
believe there are two mount points under the down tube for you to be able
Okay.
to bolt that onto. Yeah.
So just more storage. I guess you
So
could also
within the
put a
frame,
water bottle.
yeah, you could put a bag. You could put a frame bag. You could
Yeah.
put all sorts of things. Yeah. So we have added same as I think you have that on. Is it Dana that has two mounting points under the frame as well that you could put a bag
Yep.
on? Yeah,
Yep.
under
Um,
the top tube.
okay. So this is now we're getting into customization, which I think on the Carpe is a really standout feature and also kind of speaks to Orbea's production system and how these bikes are built. So maybe Nadine, you can give some context on all that.
Orbea is for anyone who's been to Europe, you kind of understand that they're all a little bike mad. And a lot of European countries are excessively bike mad. But then when you go to Basque country, they're all literally insane about, and they're kind of racing mad. And so they always look at things and go, well, how can we make it lighter and more efficient, but still do all the things that we really, really like to do with bikes, which is pretty much everything. And so we also believe that your bike is truly an extension of you in many ways. And so the ability for you to be able to personalize what you buy from us, whether it's a high-end road bike and you can custom paint your frame and spec your components to your bike fit, to the way that we see our urban mobility bikes that really are an extension of your lifestyle. And so how do you use your bike? We're going to allow you to personalize your bike straight from the factory. we have unlimited SKUs as a result, which most people who own their businesses would probably have a heart attack about. But in our case, it means that every bike can be unique. And it's an important part of what we do. We don't charge extra for it as a service. We'll charge for the componentry, and we don't charge extra when you custom paint the bikes that are available to be custom painted, because we believe that people who design their bike and make it their own are truly emotionally invested in their bikes. And we love to share our passion with the people that buy and ride our bikes. So
There's
you are
and
able
there's
to spec this bike with what you want it on, right? From a MIC point of view, we've also designed it with compatibility so that, it's not going to be hard for you to find things in your country, because we are a global brand, that will work with the racks and mounting points that we have on your bike. So
there's also, Nadine, the other aspect, which is that Orbea, it's a co-op, and we'll go over into this more at the end, just big picture about Orbea, but they
yeah, and it's one of those, you go to the production line, and Brett's had the pleasure of seeing this, and anyone who understands how or has been privy to owning another bike or another brand realizes that you're buying something that is mass produced. When you go to our factory on our assembly line, every bike that's currently on that assembly line that might be 20 strong is a different bike, because each bike is unique, and we build one bike to order. We don't mass produce what we do. So it's our bikes are assembled in the Basque Country in Mayabia. It's pronounced when you have double L's, right? The two L's become a Y. So spelled Malabia, I guess. And it's about 30 minutes outside San Sebastian and 30 minutes outside Bilbao, where the Guggenheim Museum is. Beautiful country, if you ever get up that way. You'll see a lot of Orbeas. And everyone who works in the factory is an owner of the company. We are employee owned. So it's different. I've worked for other bike brands, and the culture inside those brands is very different to the culture in Orbea. And it's part of the reason I consider myself privileged to work for Orbea. It's been around since 1840. So that makes it just 64 years younger than the US, right? Declaration of Independence date, if we use it that way. Been around a long time, and they take a lot of pride in what they do.
the other thing I think that's interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they employment is actually a part of their whole mission. So they're not, I think a lot of companies are employment is it's a little bit of a challenge, or you try to minimize it, but I think but Orbea, that's not their intention.
Yeah,
And so they,
it's the complete opposite of our philosophy.
yeah,
Our philosophy is to be able to provide employment and to grow the ability to employ more people in the Basque community and for the next generation and the generation after. And so when we build our bikes, we want to build something that lasts. We want to build something that you love, because for us, we're accomplishing our goals when you buy your next Orbea, not the first one, and hopefully the next one after that. And that helps us to provide that legacy. We actually have a massive foundation called the Orbea Foundation, and a lot of people don't even know about that side of our business. It's almost bigger than the business itself, than the bicycle production side of the business. And it's all about social development, because of course Spain is a socialist country and we are a cooperative. So it's very important to us that we are sustainable, that we take care of our environment for the next generation, and our legacy is to provide employment for a larger portion of the population in our area.
which also
Yeah.
means things like painting bikes and in-house and customization options are not doing the extra work is actually part of the point. It's not
It's part of the
something
point. Correct. Yeah.
um so on that note, we'll just talk about some of the extra things. So all the bikes come standard with a mounting system, SP Connect. We have all the accessories in the store, so you can check it out, but you can do phone mounts and cases and all sorts of things like this. Um, there's a built-in USB-C charger, so you can keep your phone charged while you're riding. Um, I didn't realize this myself, but this is really smart. So, all of the accessories and the fenders are all designed um, for urban, which also means, can you lift it on its back and not have it run
Put it
into
in the
things?
elevator. It can only fit one person and three shopping bags and a bike, right? That if it's on its rear wheel. Yeah, that's important to us.
Kickstand, of course, very important. I'm not going to go into that. We all know the importance of kickstands. Puncture resistant tires. There was a question about racks. There's two rack options. The standard rack is this one here, which is a really slim, still high capacity. So 20 kilograms is around 40 pounds, 40, 45 pounds. So most stuff that you're carrying is totally perfect with this rack. And it's got these really cool mounts from Ortlieb. This is the Ortlieb QL3 system. So you can really, we have all the Ortlieb bags that fit this. You just really fast, super secure, put your bag on your bike without any fuss at all. There's also the MIK system up top, so we have bags that click right into the top and baskets. Um, and then there's this optional rack that we can add after the fact, or you can configure the bike with, which is like a heavy duty rack, especially if you're going to carry like a child seat. This would be the rack to go for. So 30 kilograms is 60 pounds or so, 65 pounds. Front
Unless you're going to
basket.
carry a big dog. Yeah,
Yeah,
big dog, right?
big dog. Oh yeah,
Dog in
there's
the basket.
also that's a good point too. We have pet carrying
Dog carriers.
ability as well.
Yeah, those are awesome. Cat, pet, duck.
Um, the front rack and basket, this is the same accessory that's on a lot of the Orbea bikes. So the Muga, the DM, the Kemen, they all share this mounting hardware for a front rack. And we have those in stock that we can add. Usually we're doing it um, after people order the bike, but you can also configure your bike with the rack and basket. Yeah, this is what we're talking about with the mounting system. Super slick.
I must say, Brett's been selling Orbea long enough to know how to take care of his client base because when you customize something from the factory, it takes a little longer because we don't pull a bike out of a box and add your accessories to it. We build a whole new bike, especially for you with all of your accessories on it. And it can delay it 30 to 45 days shipping out of Spain. So Brett does keep a lot of those accessories in house. And if he has a bike in store, he can set it up with that gear on it for you already. So um,
Sometimes, and
you have options.
yeah, with the Carpe especially, we're gonna have bikes in stock. We do a lot of special orders,
Yeah.
which I think is great because you get to pick the exact bike you want. But the Carpe is, like I said in the beginning, it's kind of the Model T, I think, of urban bikes. So we're gonna have bikes in stock, and in which case, if we don't have the rack that you need, not a problem. We just change it. Um,
Yeah. Order it and add it when you need it. You can
yeah,
go ride your bike. And you might even not realize that I mean, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So you might not know what you need or want on it initially, but you want the bike. And then you
yeah.
can always come back to Brett and he can fit those things for you at a later date.
There's two drivetrain options on the models, and we'll go over the different models pretty soon here. But one is a Shimano Q's 9-speed transmission, which is super wide gear range. Q's is designed specifically, well, originally it was designed specifically for e-bikes, although now I think it's kind of the urban Shimano setup. But Q's is fantastic. The chains last longer for an urban bike than ever. It's got what's called Link Glide, which is Shimano's system for e-bikes that basically puts the chain under less stress when shifting, especially with a mid-drive engine. So you just get more longevity. Um,
It's a
and
real
really,
workhorse.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. And then for even more low maintenance and longevity, um, this is the first bike I think we've had with the Nexus 5-speed Di2 shifting system. So we have a lot of bikes with 5-speed Nexus, which is an e-bike specific internally geared hub. And when I say internally geared hub, it's the hub back here. It's where there's 5 speeds in here. And Shimano designed this specifically for e-bikes, and it's fantastic. It's it's more durable. It shifts under load better than most internally geared hubs, or than all internally geared hubs in many ways. And it's got super low drag, so it's a great hub. But we haven't had any with Di2, which is electronic shifting, until now. Um, and we're gonna have demo bikes of this. We already have one in stock that you can try, but the Di2 is pretty darn cool. It's you can shift it manually, but it also has automatic shifting modes, which means it will shift based on your cadence, and it has a learning algorithm, so it learns your cadence, and it'll figure out how to shift ideally for that. So I don't know if there's anything to add there, Nadine. I'm sure we'll have some questions on that later, but all I
Yeah,
can
I'm
say
not seeing
is
it
I'm a
pop up yet.
big auto
So
shifting fan.
I like it too. It just makes the ride process so simple and joyful, right? You
Yeah,
just get to go and pedal.
and I
Yeah.
love it, especially for test riding. It's super cool for a new rider. You can put people on this bike now, and or I can put people on this bike, or our team can put you on the bike and set it to auto mode, and you just focus on the ride quality and don't have to worry about shifting, and the bike will find the right gear. Um, on a practical note, if you're a more experienced bicyclist, you're probably going to like manual mode, and there's another mode called it's in some systems it's called Manual Plus, but Shimano has different names for it. But basically, what it is it shifts only when you're coasting, which is for an advanced cyclist, that's a very, very cool mode and probably works the best because what that means is it won't ever shift unexpectedly. It's just you coast along, and if your speed decreases, it auto downshifts so that when you start up again, you're in the right gear. And that is for an advanced cyclist, it's great. Auto shifting is great for more sort of meandering terrain, but in San Francisco, like if you leave the shop on Valencia Street now and you head straight up, 22nd, um, it will, the response might be a little bit, it shifts maybe when you don't expect it, which makes it a little bit more challenging. But if you're just kind of rolling through the sunset or, rolling from, Lake Merritt to UC Berkeley or whatever, it's flawless. So anyway, I'd highly recommend trying it. We have a lot of bikes now with automatic shifting. It's coming more and more. So now we have the Carpe, we have the Muga on the automatic shifting derailleur. We've got recent Mullers with automatic shifting roll off, and I think we're going to see it on a lot more bikes because it's really smart. And it's not that you have to ride in an automatic mode. Oh, we have the Nevo with automatic shifting Enviolo. So that's my plug for automatic shifting.
It also does reduce wear and tear, right? So it kind of prolongs the life of your drivetrain because it's smart, it takes care of itself. And so that's one of the other benefits of if you have access to the system of using it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess we didn't even mention the carbon belt on this. So I mean, that's a standout feature. It means that there's no grease or lubrication required on this. You just, as a rider, all you do is basically what I tell people is, you still want to come in annually for service just to check everything over, but effectively for you riding, the only thing you're doing is pumping up your tires. Um, Other than that, like you don't have to do anything to maintain like a beautifully running drivetrain
Just pump up your tires and charge it. That's
and
it.
charge it. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Okay, so there's three different model levels. The 25, the 20, and the 10. As you'll notice, price goes up, spec goes up the lower the number. That is a Orbea thing. So the 25 is the base level model, the 20 is the mid level model, and then the 10 is the top level model. Um, I guess I'll just go quickly through spec.
Lower
And
the number, the higher the spec, basically.
yeah, yeah, but you might choose a spec for different reasons. So the Carpe 25 is the pared down bike, so it's got lighting, but it's got basic lighting. It doesn't have fenders. It doesn't have rack. We could add that later if you wanted to, but it comes, I guess you could say, more sleek and naked. Um, it's it's the lightest weight version of this bike. So I am told, and we haven't actually put this on the scale ourselves, but the Carpe 25, and it depends on the frame size, and manufacturers never say weight because someone will weigh their large or whatever, and it will be a different weight, and then they'll say, "Wait, this is false advertising," whatever. So it's you got to take weight as a roundabout number, but the Carpe 25 is around 33 pounds,
Yeah, roughly,
roughly,
depending on the size. Again, yeah,
depending on the size. But effectively, I mean, the number one way to tell weight is just pick the bike up and
yeah,
see how it feels. And at anything under 40 pounds, you're looking at a bike that really feels light, in my experience. And the lighter it goes, especially if you're like for me, 6'3", I can pick up a bike that's around 40 pounds and it feels pretty light. And then I pick up a Orbea Denna, which is the carbon, or like a carbon Denna, which is like the gravel bike that's, around 31 pounds and it's really light. So 33 pounds is really very, very, very light.
yeah.
Um,
I can pick this bike up and put it on a table, and I am a mere 130 pounds myself and all of 5'5". And I can pick it up and put it on a table, two hands, bending my knees. And
um,
so that says a lot too.
yeah, and that's what it's all. I mean, that's one measure. I mean, I do tell people you don't, you know, the number of times you lift your bike is not that much, but I think with a low weight bike, you know, um, what that means is it just feels very friendly and maneuverable and easy to handle.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think the other sides to it are if you're loading it on a bike rack at some point, it's going to
Mhm.
work on a standard bike rack. You're not going to
Yeah.
need a specifically e-bike rated bike rack to put it on the back of your vehicle. It's going to be easy for you to load in your RV or in the back of your vehicle if you're driving it somewhere. It's just going to be, you're not always going to need a friend to have to
Hmm.
help you load your bike if you're my size.
Yeah.
Um, which is kind of nice to have that independence as well for being able to explore with your bike and adventure.
Yeah. So the Carpe 20 is basically the same as the Carpe 25, but it includes a front light, mud guards, and a rear rack. So it's the same bike, same performance, same drivetrain, but with those accessories that you'll want if you're using it around town, unless you like to ride, with a backpack. But I always try to convince people that you having a cycle bag is really, really nice, and getting it off your back. But the 20 is probably going to be the sweet spot for us. It doesn't add a whole lot of weight. I think what did we say, Nadine? It was 35
Probably,
pounds.
yeah, probably around 35 to 37 pounds, depending on how you spec it with what
Yeah,
accessories, but yeah, roughly, and what size it is.
yeah.
And I mean, for us, I believe that we are only bringing the 28-mile-an-hour Carpe into the US. You can always detune it if you want, but there is no price difference for us. It's one price.
And then the top end model is the Carpe 10, and that is the same, all the accessories that was on the Carpe 20, including the front light, but also has the folding stem, folding pedals, a wheel lock, and it's the electronic shifting Di2 5-speed belt drive version. So it's kind of the creme de la creme. It's going to be a little heavier because of that internally geared hub. Um, and but not a lot. I mean, it's still a very lightweight bike, and it's like a great, incredible urban platform. Um, yeah, I mean I think that summarizes like the ideas between all the bikes. I mean um, the other like key thing I think that stand out on this bike and what kind of makes it the Model T, again, I'll go back to it, is the price point on these bikes. They are really competitively priced and a really good value in the market, which I'm really excited for because, we've seen that, this is like a sweet spot range for a lot of people to upgrade from something maybe not as durable and not as long lasting, to something a lot better, but not so high that it's like they have to think about it too hard. So from a shop owner perspective, I love bikes that are in this price range because it's a sweet spot for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I mean, we generally build a more premium product. And so to be able to offer you more people access to a more premium product with all the safety ratings on the battery technology and the motors at a price point that makes it more attainable to more people, I think is fabulous. I love that we've done this as a brand because the thing that a lot of people don't realize with Orbea is that they don't know they need one until they ride one. Our ride quality is spectacular, and that's where Brett's done such a good job because he does such a good test ride program. And I think once you ride one of our bikes, your understanding of our culture is very evident in how the bike performs. And we have DM, which is just an amazing bike, right? And is super tech loaded and is like the gadget dream bike for a lot of people. But it's at a price point that's a little higher, and you bring in this bike, which I think is more of like a slimmed down version of a great performing bike
Mhm.
that makes it more accessible to more people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's pretty great. And considering that these bikes are made in Spain, painted in Spain, like made in an ethical manner, I mean, it's a it's a real privilege to be able to bring this to San Francisco, and
How
have it
much
be
of our
accessible.
Yeah, how much of our packaging, because you unbox our bikes, right? A lot of consumers we don't sell direct to consumer. So when you unbox our bikes, how much of our packaging are you able to recycle?
I think it's all recyclable. It's, I
Except for
mean,
a couple zip ties.
yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
Even the
Yeah.
rags, even the paper towel we wrap our frames in when we package them is something
Mhm.
you can use as a shop rag.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're recyclable as well.
So that is, well, look at that, right? Sort of on time. We can go a little longer, I'm sure. Nadine, let me know if that's not the case on your front, but we do have some questions that I want to make
Well,
sure we get to. Oh,
I
and we should also talk
was
about, yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering. I know that we've had, Orbea is not a super well-known brand in the US, although when it's one of the largest brands in Europe. Um, if anyone's a little Orbea curious, we have a campaign running right now, and it's really not a campaign. I think it's just the verbalizing of our philosophy through a campaign called Draw the Line. And you'd be able to find that video on YouTube and on the Orbea channel. We have a pretty awesome YouTube channel. And if you're just a little curious as to why we make our bikes the way we do, and how what our ethos and our culture is, there we go. But it's
Yeah.
awesome. He's just shared a link,
Yeah, I shared the
and
link.
it's
Thanks,
fun
Nadine.
to watch. Yeah, it'll give you a little bit of an idea of who we are, because when you understand who we are, you understand why we build the bikes that we do the way we do, and it's very different. I come from. We started the story with where I am right now, talking to you, and I love technology allows me to do that. But I grew up in Africa. I'm third generation African. My kids are fourth generation African. And we grew up with something called Ubuntu. And I've heard this word used in America in a lot of places for training programs. And a lot of companies have kind of adopted it into some sort of team building thing that they do. But where we grew up, it's part of our culture. And it's very similar to, I feel very at home at Orbea because Ubuntu means I am because we are. That's the direct translation of the term. And Orbea's philosophy is we, not me. And so those two things align really nicely in my upbringing and my story. But I love working for a brand that has a social conscience and a environmental conscience. It's a little different. If you're not
Especially in
Orbea
these
curious,
times.
yeah, you should go check it out. Yeah, you should go check it out. I think we live in a world where you can either be someone who subscribes to the commodity side of things, or you can have a philosophy to your life and you want to partner and fill your life with brands that think the same way as you. And this might help you to make a decision.
Yeah, it was the most inspiring thing I've seen from the bike industry. Besides amazing product that helps change people's lives, but from a storytelling perspective, there's nothing has come close to this video. So hopefully everyone can watch it. I put the link down in the notes here. Um, Thanks for sharing all of that, Nadine. Um, the I want to make sure we get to some questions before we have to wrap up here. The I'm going to start at the top. Um, okay, cargo capacity for the rear rack. I think we um, addressed that, which is 30 kilograms, so around 65 pounds for the heavy duty rack, and then 20 kilograms or around 45 pounds for the standard rack. Um, the range of the internal battery and how much range do you get with the add-on, the range extender? Nadine, how would you? I mean, I can give an estimate.
It's such a hard question to answer because it can, I mean, what are our variables, right? It's the terrain, how hilly is your terrain, rider weight, what are you loading on the bike, how much headwind are you encountering? I think those are all factors that play in. Stop start, how many times are you stop starting traffic lights? All of those things play a big role. But if I take my 420 watt hour rise, I can do probably 35 miles and 5,000 feet of vertical gain. And that's on a mountain bike, right? Much heavier. It's not as light and sleek as this. So I think you're probably dealing with a product here that without the range extender, you could probably comfortably do a 40-mile trip before you need to charge it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? You're in
Yeah,
the same ballpark?
that sounds, I mean, the speed is a big determiner too, I will say. So like 28 miles per hour, the battery gets used more with higher speed, but a lighter weight bike makes a huge difference too, and high and low rolling resistance and pumping up your tires. I cannot tell you how much that makes a difference. I mean, the other day I hadn't been pumping my tires for too long on one of my bikes, and I'm like, maybe my battery is getting worn out. And then I pumped up my tires. I'm like, oh, never mind. So I make the mistake too. So yes, I think I would say with a 420 watt hour battery, I would say 25 to 50 miles to a charge, depending on what assist level you're riding in and how you ride. And then the range
If you're the
extender.
person, yeah, if you're the person who always rides in turbo, I mean, I have friends like that, right? And I can't say I haven't had days like that. I'm just going to put that thing in max and go
Yeah.
the whole time. It's fun. Um, yeah, you're probably going to need to charge it after you rode it just to
Yeah.
be safe for the next time you ride it.
Yeah. So I just want to answer the quick question about demos. So because we didn't talk about that. So we're going to have the 10 and the 20 and the 25, a mix of all of those in all the stores. And the idea is is going to be the 10 is always fully equipped, so you get to see all the accessories. And then we'll have either a 25 or a 20 in each store. And we'll have a large and a small, so we have a range of sizes. Um, the bikes went into production at the beginning of this month, and we're now just starting to get our bikes in. So we have in my newsletter, I said we're going to have demo bikes by Saturday in all stores. I still think that's very much a possibility, but one bike is arriving today and we're going to build it. And then the other bike is hopefully it's stuck right now in Cincinnati. Um, so it was supposed to arrive. It shipped at the same time as the other one. So my hope is we'll have in all the stores, Lisa, we'll have a 20. Well, actually, what's coming right now is 25s. And we have a 10 in the San Francisco store right now. And we're going to have 25s coming in, and we will be putting those in the stores. And then So that's the pared down, super light version, but it gives you the ride feel for sure, 100%. So the goal is to have that in the Larkspur store this weekend. Um, there's a possibility that we don't get all the bikes and then we have to choose which store gets what. In which case, I would just reach out to us if you are planning to come in and just confirm that we have the bike if you want to try it. But my hope is you know, by early next week, we'll have every store full of at least one bike, and then we'll have the full range in the next couple weeks. If Nadine can crack the whip.
Yeah, and you are the first location in the US to be getting your Carpes. You were
That's
first on the
that's
list.
awesome. And we got stock bikes. I saw the stock bikes are all going
Yep,
into production now too.
yep.
So
So
they're all being backfilled with more bikes that will be in stock and ready to go. So that's really cool. But I told Nadine that we need to have demo bikes first, and it's happening.
yeah. And then we did have a question around the tires you could put on this bike,
Hmm.
Brett, and what you can offer at New Wheel for customization. So if someone wanted no flat tires,
Yeah. So the tires, I mean, I think considering the weight of the bike and the quality of the tires that are on the bike, you're going to have a lot of, I don't think the flat issues are going to be an issue. I mean, they're not no flat. Um, no tire is 100% no flat unless it's a solid tire, but the best tire on the market for almost eliminating flats, in my opinion, would be a Schwalbe Marathon Plus tire, which we have in stock that will fit on this bike. So if you want to like not have to think about it, they're a little heavier tires, but they are like basically no flat. They do advertise them as flatless, and unless you hit a nail dead on, you won't get a flat. So we could upgrade to those. We can also put sealant in the tubes. That helps a lot for like small things that maybe get through tires. But I think given the weight of the bike, um, the stock tires are going to be pretty good. And then we can always upgrade to. I like Schwalbe tires generally, and that's what we stock. Estimated
yeah, and
delivery
then
time.
yeah.
I just want to
And
just
would that
quickly,
be yeah, for something custom? Do you want to custom build it with all of your racks and accessories on it, or are you curious as to when Brett would have available bikes? All right, so if you were placing a new order right now, based on production, with customization, if it wasn't a stock model, it would probably be around 45 days from date of placing the order.
this bike is going to be big probably everywhere around the world, if I had to guess. Um, so we've we've uh we've got a lot of stock bikes coming, so we might have something that pretty much fits. And we did that so that we could
And
make
you
sure we
might
have
have enough,
inventory.
yeah, there might be enough time, Brett, if one of yours has not quite gone into production, that you could
Mhm.
modify it still
Yeah,
with whatever um, David would like to put on it.
yeah,
So, there is that, and that would bring that time frame forward just a little bit. But I know
yeah,
that we are in a fairly big production loop cycle of these bikes for initial orders.
yeah. But I think there's differences based on the size, like the colors and things like that. So I would just say reach out to us or stop in. Right now, we have a Carpe 10 small in the San Francisco store. Um, and I will say the smalls, Orbeas run a little small. So small is small and you can get a good feeling for it, but it is pretty darn small. And I actually haven't, even when I was at Orbea, I rode, I think, a medium. So I haven't ridden a bike that's like fully fits me, but it will give you a really good feeling for it. Um, but the small, what's cool about it is sizes are really good for a lot of American riders that are run like a lot of European bikes tend to be bigger, but Orbea is the opposite. So we have bikes for smaller riders. So the small fits like much like I guess like under 5 feet um, well. But if you're 6'3" like me, you're a little bit big on it.
It's a little more challenging. Yeah. They're not a huge amount of tall bass people.
Okay. Well, that answers it then.
Yeah.
Um, Any other questions? Oh, there was a question about price difference. I think we answered class one and class three. Based on what I see, is we could order class one bikes, Nadine, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
No, I think that's going to go away.
But
Yeah, I
okay,
think that's going to go away. The
okay,
meeting I was in a little earlier today, from the notes that Matt, your new rep, who's on the school, also made.
okay.
So, did you see Matt in here?
Now I do. Hi, Matt.
Oh, hey, Matt. Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Okay, so
So,
we'll have to update our website with that information.
yeah, I
Um,
think once Orbea updates their website, your website should update along with ours, right?
Not automatically, unfortunately, but someday.
Ah, you got to hit a magic button.
I gotta do work. Um, okay, well, if there's not any other questions, we, we're gonna have bikes in stock. We'd love to see you. You can book a test ride at newwheel.net/ride. And like I said, this weekend, our hope is to have a demo bike in each store. It may not be your size, but it'll allow you to at least look at it. It may not be the model that you want, but you can at least look at it and see what it is. And we can keep talking. You can send us an email. You can call us. We're learning about the bike too, so your questions are great because then we will go and figure them out and then learn together.
We also
Um,
learn what's important to you, and that helps us too, as well, right? When we learn what's important to you as the consumer and the end user of these products, it really helps us to do
yeah,
better all the time. So we appreciate
sweet. Um,
it. Yep, Matt will
well,
have a sample soon. Yeah.
thank you everyone who joined. Really good crowd. So that's awesome. And we'll post this online as well. So this will be available for the netizens out there. Thank you so much, Nadine,
Thanks so much
all
for
the way from
joining us.
Swaziland.
Yeah, a little unusual, right? But thank you so much.
Incredible.
Thanks, New. And thank you, everyone.